Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to another episode of High Score, which is designed for you, the higher secondary school students. Now we are coming to the class of English class. Okay, before entering into the class, please let me know, please let me inform you that I have a plan to discuss today, and we will be going through one of the first unit of the plus one English class. When we talk about the first unit, there are four lessons you can see in first unit. Now I have a plan to discuss its third lesson, which is titled as Quest for a Theory of Everything by Kitty Grail Ferguson. Okay, and before entering into the chapter in detail, let me have a few words about the content of the first unit or this lesson. Actually, this lesson, as well as other lessons in this unit, which is discussing about some of the great people that have existed in our world. I mean, okay, you might have heard the names of so many people with the different achievements, with the different, perspectives, or the people who are very successful in their own field. And at the same time, when they are successful, they are also becoming very inspiring people. That is what we have to get inspired by the story of these people. And in that sense, now when we come to this lesson today, we are going to discuss something about Stephen Hawking. Okay, don't forget this name, Stephen Hawking. And some of you might have heard, or most of you might have read or listened somewhere else about the name of Stephen Hawking. And if anyone is there who has not heard the name Stephen Hawking, we just understand that he is one of the very, very prominent figures when we talk about the science. When we talk about the modern science, I mean the very fundamental sciences. Fundamental sciences means the science or the studies which involves with the study of the origin of our earth, the origin of our galaxy, or the existence and its time, space, everything. When we are talking about some great people like Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, such people, and here comes this man, Stephen Hawking, and he has also the same status, like these great people. And here the author just draws some of the experiences from the life of Stephen Hawking and how he managed to come to the fame and what happened in his life, and all these things have been presented very clearly and at the same time very in a very simplified manner in this lesson. So after the end of this, the discussing, about this lesson, you will also get a very good idea about Stephen Hawking. And this is what I aim to do through this class. And I hope that you will really find it interesting as well as informative, by going through some of the, very inspiring lessons about a very great man called Stephen Hawking, one of the prominent voices in the modern science. So, my dear friends, before we entering into the details of Stephen Hawking, now let me give you some details about this author. Okay, we are not supposed to study in detail about the author, but still, there are some basic information regarding him given here. And the author's name is Kitty Gale Ferguson, and actually he's a science writer. Okay, that we can just imagine, and he's a lecturer and a former professional musician also. So, my dear friends, before going into the details of the this lesson about Stephen Hawking, and let's have a few, very few ideas about, or the information about the author of this article. And author's name is, as you know, it's Kitty Gale Ferguson. She's a science writer and she's a lecturer and former professional musician also. And she has authored numerous science books, including books on biographical facts. That means she has written so many books regarding the achievements or regarding the contents of so many prominent personalities, especially in the field of science. And Ferguson's works are recognized for their degree of detail and accuracy. And she is known for her ability to explain very complicated scientific concepts also. And being a writer and being a lecturer, and especially in the area of modern science, she's well known with regard to the explanation or and all the complicated things she tries to explain in a very simplified manner for the readers. That's okay. That I just told you, and you are okay. If you want to know more about him, just to try to gather some information about the author. So some other channels. Anyway, now let's enter into the main topic. I mean, the topic that what's our title? You just remember the title of our lesson. Okay, just try to remember the title of our lesson. That is Quest for a Theory of Everything. Quest for a theory of everything. When you hear this quest for a theory of everything, what do you mean? Okay, then there is a quest for a theory of everything. That means to know each and every details about what's happening there, with regard to the scientific theories or about all other things. Even the title mentions that quest for a theory of everything. I mean, you see, a vigorous attempt or a deliberate efforts to know more about the theory of everything. Everything means regarding our universe or with regard to the scientific theories of our the existing world, and it goes on. And even the title mentions that. That's why I just try to explain a little bit. Now, when we come to the lesson, okay, you had better, when you listen to this video, you had better read, the same paragraph at the same time simultaneously, so you can understand more when I explain. This is the way that, I'm supposed to take. Okay, and then when we come to the chapter, we can see in the cock. Let's firstly, now let me read the concerned paragraphs, and then I will explain what the author just wants to express through this paragraph. I hope you all understand what I say, isn't it? Okay. And in the Cockcroft lecture room on April 29, 1980, scientists and university dignitaries gathered in steep tiers of seats facing a two-story wall of chalkboard and slide screen. Okay, there we are, we are shown a particular scene dated on 1980, and the people gathering there, just before a slide screen. And the occasion was the inaugural lecturer by a new location professor of mathematics. What do you mean by location professor? That's a, in some universities there are some professors for some special experts. And actually, this position, there are, you might have heard emeritus professor and something like that, some visiting professor. It's like a location professor. That means a very highest person, a very expert comes there in the position of that, and he or she may not be the permanent staff of that position, but they are invited as a very special personality on that, and very very much expert on that particular field of knowledge. So, and the 38-year-old mathematician and physicist, that is none other than Stephen Hawking. So the our chapter begins with the introduction of a particular scene, which happened in 1980, and that shows that 38-year-old Stephen Hawking, just giving a lecture. Okay, and then the author, just leads us, okay, what she wants to talk about, the Stephen Hawking, the central theme of this chapter. The title of the lecturer was a question: Is the end in sight for theoretical physics? Hawking started Hawking startled his listeners by announcing that he thought it was. He invited them to join him in a sensational escape through time and space to find the holy grail of science, the theory that explains the universe and everything that happens in it. So, my dear friends, what was the question that Stephen Hawking asked at that time? Is there, the end in sight for the theoretical physics? That was the question. That was the title question that he asked. And what did he think in that situation? He thought that there was an end for the studies for a theoretical end in the physics, and even he thought himself that, and he just here the author uses a word holy grail. What's a holy grail? Grail is a term which is used as to refer the medieval, I mean the term, or the cup used by the Jesus Christ in his last supper. That's what the holy grail, that means the thing that deals with everything, the things the theory that deals with everything with regard to the universe, and it goes on like that. And Stephen, actually, when we come to the next, I mean when we come to the that's a particular moment. Let's see. Stephen Hawking sat silently in a wheelchair while one of his students read his lecture to the assembled company. Judged by the appearance alone, Hawking didn't seem a promising choice to lead any adventure. Okay, then actually he was not able to present himself. Okay, then why it happens, and why he is not able to present himself? That okay, we will come to that through this chapter. And instead of that, one of his students presented the paper, and somehow by a sight we may think that what this man is capable of presenting all these things and in such a way, but actually surprisingly we can say that he is the man who is the prominent theme of this chapter, and you will really be surprised by knowing more things or more facts about the real face of Stephen Hawking. Okay, then now we are coming. We don't take so much time by explaining each and every word. Okay, now I'm coming to the chapter, entering into the chapter in detail. Stephen William Hawking. Actually, he was born on 8th January 1942 in Oxford, in England. It was exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo, the father of modern science. So he was born in 1942 on January 8. That's a specialty, before 300 years exactly. That was the day in which the greatest Galileo was born. Who is Galileo? Galileo is the father of modern science, and you might have heard and read something about Galileo. Otherwise, you should invest some time to know about him. When we talk about science, that is a name which is undeniable. In that sense, you must know about something about these people like Galileo, or even Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, such people. That's because they are the great the personalities with regard to the modern science. And when we come Frank and Isabel Hawking, Frank and Isabel Hawking, who are they? They are the parents of Stephen Hawking. Actually, they were not wealthy, but they believed in the value of education. Okay, not that point. They were not very wealthy. They were not very rich, but they believed in the value of education. Education is something which you can use to become rich or wealthy, or to get your life better, because you have to give some values to the education. You may be coming from a poor family or a middle class family, or even if an upper class family, whatever background you are coming from, but by using education in a very useful manner, you can grow yourself. Okay. And like okay, as I explained, so they planned for Stephen to go to Westminster, a famous public school in the heart of London. So they just planned to send their son to the Westminster public school in the London. Okay. And then unfortunately Stephen was ill at the time of scholarship examination for Westminster. Therefore he attended the local St Albans school. So he was unfortunately not very well, physically well. He was ill, so he couldn't attend the examination to attend there. And finally, he had to adjust with studying in local Saint Albans school. Okay, and by the time he was 8, he was thinking seriously about becoming a scientist. Okay, even when he was 8 years old, he was seriously thinking about being a scientist. You just think about that. You are people in 15 years or 16 years, okay, maybe 17 or in that age, 15 or 16 normally. So now you are thinking you are studying so many. You may be studying both science or commerce or humanities or whatever the subjects, but you must have a very clear aim nowadays, because when we are discussing about Stephen Hawking, he had a clear vision of becoming the scientist even when he was 8 years old. That's what he made all the difference. That's how the geniuses minds work. See, and Frank Hawking encouraged his son to follow him into medicine, but Stephen found biology too imprecise. And actually, his parents wanted him to send for the medicine so that he can become a doctor or something else. But for Stephen Hawking, biology was not imprecise. That means actually he wants to uh, you know invest his energy for studying something which he can get a very precise idea about a theory. But because biology is actually deals with the human beings or other animals, and which is actually not giving the exact answer to all questions. But with regard to for example, when we concerned about the mathematics, you have an exact answer to all questions. That's what the other means here. He wanted a subject in which he could look for exact answers and get to the root of things. Yes, this is what I explained earlier. And he just wanted to get an exact answer. And he just wanted to study a subject which gives you an exact answer, an exact concept in that way. And for that purpose, mathematics is okay, a clear, a precise subject. So we were discussing about, and Stephen Hawking was not a young prodigy. Okay, what do you mean by prodigy? Prodigy is a kid, who is exceptionally, expert in a particular skill, because that particular boy may, show a particular excellent skills in it and something. For example, we can say, okay, or you might be interested in football. We can say Lionel Messi was a prodigy. That means from the very childhood itself, he showed some exceptional skills. That's what I am talking about. For example, like our Gary Kasparov. Have you heard ever the Gary Kasparov, former world chess champion? He was a prodigy because when he was a childhood, he showed some exceptional skills of beating, old aged people and senior people like that. But in this case, Stephen Hawking was, the author says that he was not a prodigy at all. He was just an ordinary English schoolboy, slow in learning to read, his handwriting, the despair of his teachers. Okay, he was slow in reading. He was just an ordinary student, the author says. And actually, his handwriting, was, a headache for teachers to identify. And it was also not very good. He was ranked no more than halfway up in his class, though he now says in his own defense, it was a very bright class. Actually, we can say that he never came at the top, but he also at the same time he didn't come in the very below rank. So he was placed in the ordinary and average way. Was placed in the middle of the class ranking. That's what shows. But in order to justify this, sometimes he may say that it was a very bright class. That's why he was placed somewhere else in the middle. I hope you understand what I say. And at 14, what happens? Stephen Hawking knew that he would pursue mathematics and physics. His father called. Actually, Stephen Hawking just thought that he has a plan, or he really wanted to pursue. Pursue means go for a course. Pursue the course mathematics and physics. That is what the combination which attracted him. See, and his father called this impractical, for there were no jobs in mathematics except teaching. Yeah, because his father was not at all encouraging this, because his father thought that there were not much opportunities for a student in mathematics, because only teaching job or teaching profession is the only option left for mathematics students. It was what his father thought normally. And moreover, he wanted his son to attend his own college, and Oxford offered no mathematics. Yes, he just wanted his son to send to his own college, under the Oxford University. And but actually, that Oxford particular college, didn't offer mathematics. He followed his father's advice and studied chemistry, physics, and only a little mathematics in preparation for the entrance into Oxford. And actually, I can say he did well in physics, and the interview was brilliantly accepted. Yes, of course, but he followed some of his father's advices, and he prepared something like studying and preparing for chemistry, physics, a little mathematics also. But he was exceptionally brilliant in physics. That's why the interview was brilliantly accepted. And in 1959, now the other comes to the later period of his life. At the age of 70, now Stephen Hawking has become, 17 years old. Hawking went to the Oxford to study natural science and to specialize in physics. He joined University College, his father's college and the oldest at university, founded in 1949 AD. So actually, he just went to the Oxford to study the natural science and specialize in physics. And actually, this is the subject in which he got that much interested. That's not either mathematics or chemistry or any other biology, but physics. Physics is something which attracted Stephen Hawking's curiosity to that level. Nevertheless, for about a year and a half, Hawking was lonely and bored. He was not inspired to relieve his boredom by exerting himself academically, but halfway through his second year, he began enjoying Oxford. And during the first phase, he was not at all interested, and he didn't get enough inspiration for, by academically, okay, he was okay, but at the same time, he felt alone. He felt boring. I mean, he felt he was getting boredom by this. But eventually, what happened was he got interested in studying at Oxford, and by the end of the second year, he almost got interested in continuing this session, and he became popular and well accepted among his peers. They remember him as a lively, buoyant, and adaptable. He wore his hair long, was famous for his wit, liked classical music and science fiction, and took part in sports. And being a man and being a personality, and we can see that he was very much accepted, among his friends, because he was very nice, he was very witty, he was joking sometimes, and he was really, his style was of course making things very attractive, and he's always engaging with the friends. So in that way, he was, of course, very popular among his friends. And now the other comes to another phase of his life. However, at the end of the third year, Hawking almost floundered. He selected theoretical physics as his specialty. He had then applied to a PhD at Cambridge, and was accepted on a condition that he got a first from Oxford. Hawking was confident that he could get through successfully, but as the examination day approached, his confidence failed. Hawking ended up disastrously on the borderline between a first and second. Of course, then what happened was that he, in fact, really, what can I say? He really wanted to make an important move in his life. Thereafter, he just wanted to pursue a PhD in the particular subject, and he just wanted to go to Cambridge University, another, and later a place of his own life and career. But the Cambridge University authority said that you must get first. I mean, it's something like getting first class, okay, and then only you can get admission here. And he was really confident that he can get, because he was good at academical aspects. So, but unfortunately, what happened was that the examination, when the examination days, were coming, his confidence just leveled low, and he was anyway just in between the border of that particular distinction, getting the first that particular actually he had a narrow missing to that to get that particular rank, because then only he can get the admission to the Cambridge University. Then what happened was that, faced with a borderline result, the examiners summoned Hawking for an interview and questioned him about his plans. In spite of the tenseness of the situation, Hawking managed to come up with the kind of remark for which he was famous among his friends. If I get a first, I shall go to Cambridge. If I receive a second, I will remain at Oxford. So I expect that you will give me a first. He got his first and he went to Cambridge. Okay, then anyway, an interview was finally called, and which they asked about the plans of Stephen Hawking, and Stephen Hawking just presented his plan in a very witty and interesting way. He just said that if I get a first, it's something like a grade. If get the first grade or the first class, I have a plan to go to Cambridge for doing PhD. Otherwise, if you are giving me only, if I can achieve only the second, I will remain in Oxford. So you had better give me the first, class, something like that. So as a result, finally he got the admission to the Cambridge University, and then he went to the Cambridge University, and his the next phase of his life begins there. And his first year at Cambridge was worse than at Oxford. His slipshod mathematical background caught up with him and found general relativity extremely tough. Another more disastrous problems arose then. During his third year at Oxford, Hawking started getting clumsy. He had fallen once or twice for no apparent reason. The following autumn at Cambridge, he had trouble tying his shoes, and sometimes he had difficulty, talking. Okay, and the Cambridge days were not at all very beautiful, and some problems, of course, came, and his, mathematical background, and which became a quite difficult for him, and also at the first instance, the general relativity, and with regard to the physics theory, and also he felt quite difficult. And also, this is not about the academic things, but what happens, he just we can say that he found some symptoms of falling for no reason, falling from here and there, and he also he was found some difficulty in talking properly. This is what happened during this time, and that means there shows a sign of some problems are coming. Okay, then shortly after his 21st birthday in 1963, Hawking contracted a rare disease, that is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, for which there was no known cure. And this is also called motor neuron disease, that I will explain in detail, for which there was no cure. It caused a gradual disintegration of the nerve cells in the spinal cord and the brain. At first, he went into a deep depression. He didn't know what he ought to do or what his future would be like. And finally, very unfortunately, what happened was that just after his 21st birthday in 1963, very unfortunately, very sadly, he came to know that a very rare disease has come to just to take his life into unknown junctures. And that the title or the name of that disease, it's a very rare, and that is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is also called motor neuron vehicle. If you want to know more in detail, just try to learn about it. It's appearing in a very rarely, and it's actually finally it caused a disintegration of the nerve scales in the spinal cord and the brain, which makes a complete what can I say, difficulty in the physical structure. And as a matter as a normally as a result, he just became very much depressed, because this is happening all of a sudden. Our life is like that. Suddenly we just get caused some disease or some problems or some unexpected things. And in the case of Stephen Hawking, it was in the form of this rare disease. Okay. And see, then what, he was very much nervous how his future would be, because suddenly it happens. Especially he had a lot of dreams and plans, but suddenly this happened like this. And my dreams at that time were rather confused, he admitted. Before my condition was diagnosed, I had been very bored with life. There didn't seem to be anything worth doing. But shortly after I came out of hospital, I dreamt that I was going to be executed. I suddenly realized there were a lot of worthwhile things to do if I were deprived. Another recurring dream was the idea of sacrificing my life to save others. After all, if I were going to die, I might as well do some good for others. Okay, and actually, in the beginning, he became very much depressed and very much, it was because suddenly the life changes. But all of a sudden, what happened was that his old dreams, are going to come to an end and something like that. But what happened immediately was that he just got some positive energy, and he was thinking that, okay, now in this situation I can think of doing some other things. And okay, even if I lost my life, even if I am forced to sacrifice my life, I can use this opportunity to do something for other people. I mean, to, okay, his mind went into that situation. He just wanted to do something great, and which is actually, benefiting for other students or other people, or in a vast meaning, the humanity, the entire humanity. So he just wanted to some good thing to the people, because he was knowing that, even if he is going to die, if you are doing a great things for the world, you will be remembered forever, even if you are dying. That's what happens here, because Stephen Hawking has died many years ago, and still we are studying about Stephen Hawking. This is what happened, and this is what came in his mind. That's what you have to remember, my dear friends. And Hawking's doctors hoped that his condition would stabilize, but the disease aggravated rapidly. They soon informed him that he had only about 2 years to live. And the Hawking's doctors first hoped that, okay, things will be getting better, and he will be back, coming better. But unfortunately, things got worsened. And finally, the doctors informed Stephen Hawking that there are only 2 years left for him to live on this earth. Oh, what a sad moment. And it happened. But what happened later? 2 years passed. The progression of the disease had slowed. And he was saying that I didn't die. In fact, although there was a cloud hanging over my future, I found to my surprise that I was enjoying life in the present more than before. Total disability and death, though still a not too distant certainty, were postponed. Hawking had his reprieve, a precarious and temporary one, but life was precious. And he was actually, that 2 years passed, and the doctors, offered him only 2 years. After 2 years, he will die, or his life is going to end. But after the 2 years finished, he was still alive, and he was very much depressed at the first stage. But now he was thinking, and he even says that he was enjoying this life very much. He was enjoying this life very much, and he was doing so many positive things, because anyway, this is something that, the positive thing that we have to also get. We may come across so many unexpected events, so many unexpected problems or tragedies. So many problems are coming, which is it's life is like that. So many problems are coming, but still, whenever we are put in a negative situation, we have to think what we can do in this situation. This is what Stephen Hawking did in that case. Stephen Hawking knew that he was just put in such a worst situation, but he says that he started enjoying his life, and he started doing so many things in a positive way. And now the other leads us at a New Year's party at St. Albans. Just before he entered the hospital for tests, Hawking met Jane Wilde. To her, this disheveled graduate student seemed terribly intelligent, eccentric, and rather arrogant, but he was interesting and she liked his wit. Okay, then the author mentions how he manages to, or how he got married, how he found out his girl, that woman. That woman's name is Jane Wilde, and Jane Wilde just met Stephen Hawking from a hospital. And that what can I say, uh, that this graduate, that this man with some physical, unexpected physical problem, but this man appeared to be very intelligent for this lady. And he was very intelligent and eccentric. Eccentric means crazy with so many ideas, and crazy with so many concepts, and very energetic, vigorous, and it was rather arrogant. Okay, maybe taken as a negative statement when we talking about the common people, but when we talk about the arrogant aspect of a genius or a great people, we see that they are the people who are very much confident about their skills and capabilities. That's why they become a little bit arrogant. That's the case here. But anyway, his personality attracted Jane Wilde. Okay, and then what happened? Let's check. When Jane met him again after discharge from the hospital, he was really in a pathetic state. I think he has lost his will to live. He was very confused, she commented. She was not, however, put off by his physical or mental condition, and she was rather a shy teenager and serious minded with a strong faith in God, ingrained him from childhood by her mother, and a belief that good can come out of any adversity. So actually, this Jane Wilde was saying that whenever the moment after he met, how was the situation of Stephen Hawking at that time? She says that he has lost the will to live, and he was very confused what to do and what are the next plans, what are the future plans. He was really confused what to do with the life in the coming years, and she understood these things. And she was not, however, put off by his physical or mental condition. But anyway, this lady was not very much disappointed or got any negativity with regard to his physical or mental condition. But she was actually a shy teenager, but she believed in the power of God. She was a faithful to God, and she believed that good things happen, or good things can be happened at any time of adversity. I mean, during the time of any negative situation, good things can happen. It was her belief, because she was a very adamant believer in God, and she took things very positively. And okay, that's something which changed the life of Stephen Hawking. And in fact, Stephen Hawking admired her optimism, and their friendship developed slowly. After a while, the two began to realize, at Jane's words, that together we could make something worthwhile. For Stephen, that made all the difference. He applied for a research fellowship at KAIS, one of the colleges in Cambridge University. Then, they tried to, I mean, Jane Wilde's approach, and she was very, optimistic in that situation. Normally, the people, when they face to these kind of things, they start to become, what is they become pessimistic. I mean, nothing will happen in the positive way, everything will be in the negative. But here, these people, this lady, as well as Stephen Hawking, just tried to think in a very optimistic way, and things were started to happening, and that lady thought that we together can do something. We together can, if we are united, we can. If we are united, we can do something for the good of others or even for themselves. She thought like that, and their friendship grew up very much. And then in 1965, at the age of 23, Hawking received his fellowship at Case University. And at the same time, he had applied for a research fellowship at, one of the colleges under the Cambridge University, Case Colleges. That is one of the, good colleges under the Cambridge University. And he normally got a research fellowship. And at the same year, Jane and Stephen Hawking got married. This is what happened at the 1965. People who remember Hawking in the university in the late 1960s, the people who remember Stephen Hawking in the late 1960s, recall him making his way around the corridors with a cane, supporting himself against the wall. He spoke with what sounded like a slight speech impediment, but more than that, they remember his confidence, his brashness. Brashness means confidence. They remember his brashness in sessions involving some of the world's most distinguished scientists, while other young researchers kept a reverential silence. Hawking daringly asked unexpected and penetrating questions. He clearly knew what he was talking about. His reputation as a genius, neither Einstein, began then. So in the late 1960s, everybody was seeing that Stephen Hawking with some difficulty is sitting in the chair and just sitting across the wall and everything. But at the same time, whenever there occurs so many academic seminars are happening, so many very renowned personalities of scientists will be coming. But Stephen Hawking will be asking so many interesting and very difficult questions. He won't keep as a silent. So everybody will be really surprised. Even the normal people, they don't have that much courage to question some prominent scientists. But Stephen Hawking showed some courage, and he dared to ask so many tough questions to scientists. And his brain was like that. He was always curious about the scientific theory and studying such things. Okay, then this is what I just wanted to. Okay, now we will be coming and about this book and what his plans. And up to this, you just understand what I said, and I hope that you enjoyed it till this now. Now we will be discussing about his ideas of a book and everything in the next session. Thank you very much for joining the High Score app, and you are most welcome for the next session. Okay, bye.